Hi, I'm Roland Stevens, the General Manager of Government and Client Relationships at TCorp. Today, we are launching our Fireside Conversations series for clients. And through this series, we will be featuring prominent industry leaders, policymakers, and also leaders from TCorp who will share their views on the economy, on investments and financial markets, as well as big picture themes and outlooks. And joining me for our first conversation is David Deverall, who is our Chief Executive here at TCorp. David, welcome.
Thanks, Roland. Great to be here.
Well, why don't we dive in, David? You've had a busy start to the year. You attended a super summit in Washington, DC on behalf of the New South Wales Treasurer. And you and the Treasurer had a series of meetings in the US and Europe with big institutional and international investors. What were your key takeaways from these experiences?
Yeah, look, thanks, Roland. It was an amazing time of year, a time to really be in the United States in general. It's always cold that time of year, but I tell you what, we got a very warm reception when we were there. And it was driven by the fact that they've just had this, I can call no other word than a revolution taking place in the US administration, the Trump administration, and the ripple effects that's having not only within the United States, but across the Atlantic into Europe, and then all the way back through to China and obviously down into Australia. So did a lot of listening, did a lot of learning, and I guess my main takeaway is, like all revolutions, you never quite know how they're going to end. And some are written many hundreds of years afterwards, like the French Revolution. Some other revolutions get cut off early on in their regime, but nevertheless, it was a fantastic time to be there.
Revolution is a strong word, and you, like others, are talking about maybe fundamental change here. Against that backdrop, what do you see as the key opportunities and challenges for TCorp and its peers?
Yeah, good question. I might start at what are they, maybe even just trying to think through what are they trying to achieve through their revolution. And there are many aspects of it. I'll leave the social side of things just out of here for the time being. But from an economic point of view, I guess there's three legs to this revolutionary agenda they're trying to push from an economic point of view. Firstly, in the United States, they want to make the United States the single most attractive place for capital to go in the world. And that's being driven by their policy of making life as easy as possible for the private sector. So remove the public sector, and that's a lot of the DOGE changes being put by Elon Musk, but make it much more about the private sector and enable them through a strong program of deregulation and underpinned by really low energy prices. So you can get a flavour for what they're trying to achieve, a sort of a low inflation, high growth environment. That's their aim for America. Then across the ditch, as they would call it, across the Atlantic into Europe, they just want them to look after their own defence needs. So a big push for the Europeans to do that, and we're just seeing that rumble through now with the Germans.
All the Euro defence stocks going up.
Absolutely, Euro defence stocks have doubled in the last 6 months or so, or less. And the German government now is unleashing huge amounts of fiscal expansion on defence. And the third leg of their revolution, I guess, would be in China. China and America, or the United States, have an awkward relationship in the sense that they're the two great rivals for power on this planet. The Americans are very, very clear about what they want the Chinese to do, which is to promote consumer-led growth in their economy, not this export-led approach that they've had in the past. So that's a big change, and I think to some extent the Chinese are starting to listen. So this revolution, as I call it, has got a lot of noise attached to it, a lot of tariff stuff and what have you, but at its core, some of the underpinnings are actually starting to take place in the US, in Europe, and now we're starting to see a bit in China. So what does that mean for an organisation like TCorp? Well, from an investment perspective, it's both an exciting and a scary time to be an investor, because you've got the noise associated with the revolution, which has us lurching from hope to despair. Deep down, there's an overwhelmingly positive view from the investment climate. However, it's clouded in all these risks of what might Donald Trump say today or do tomorrow. And that creates a sort of a challenging environment for us from the investment perspective. And then on the debt side of the business, the debt raising side that we do, that is one where we need to make sure that the New South Wales government and the way in which we represent them in global capital markets is viewed as positively as possible, because there's going to be a lot of capital all around the world looking for an investment home to go. Will it be the United States? Will it be China? Will it be Europe? Well, from a debt issuance point of view, we need to say, don't forget about New South Wales as well. So lots of really interesting dynamics taking place here. The revolution is burning bright at the moment. We'll see how long it lasts and what that ultimately means for us.
We'll come soon to TCorp's strategic priorities for the coming financial year, but I want to ask you about the process for setting those, because so there's the noise, there's the theatrics, there's the revolution. Will it last? Won't it last? How do you assess and set your strategic priorities in that environment? I mean, how do you go away, you have these experiences, how does that feed in, given that you know some of it will be noise, but there are also profound things happening here?
Yeah, it's separating the noise from the insights, and that's not easy. I think one of the great benefits that we had while I was away with the Treasurer was that we're able to spend some time with the best and brightest minds in the planet. You know, some of the top people in the US administration, the top people in Wall Street, the top people in the City of London. So we're able to distill from them this capacity, I believe, to separate the noise from the insight. And we bring that to bear when we set our own strategy for TCorp. And then we put forth our views with our own board, which includes some quite illustrious members as well, who know a thing or two about the world and the way in which it operates. And then from that, we're able to set the course, which again is ruthlessly focused on the insights and as much as possible ignores the noise.
Thank you, David. Why don't we talk about the product of that, which are TCorp's strategic priorities for the coming financial year. Could you share a bit about those and how they will support our clients and help them to advance their agendas?
From the investment side of things, one of the big strategic initiatives for us is deploying our capital into the global markets, which for half of the portfolio, or 2/3 of the portfolio, is relatively straightforward. It's listed securities. And listed securities, the beauty of them is they're incredibly liquid. You can get set, even in a multi-billion-dollar portfolio, relatively quickly. The challenge is working out where you put your money into what we call private markets. So unlisted property, unlisted infrastructure, unlisted equity, unlisted credit. That's not easy because a number of investors like ourselves all around the world are trying to answer the same question, or they're asking themselves the question, and what is the answer? And so how we actually are cleverer, more nimble, and just generally better at deploying this capital of our $120 billion of capital, the 30% or so that goes into the unlisted markets, how we do that in a way that actually really beneficial for the people of New South Wales, that's one of the big strategic initiatives for us. And then, it's a very competitive environment. It's a similar thing for our debt financing side, so the financial market side of the business, is that when you think of New South Wales, we run a budget deficit, and it's a reasonably large one, but it pales into insignificance with some of the other budget deficits that are being run by other jurisdictions, happily. But it's still a deficit, which means it needs to be debt financed. But if you add it the Americans, the Brits, now the Germans and all the other Europeans who've got to spend money on defence, we're in a very, very, very competitive market saying, hello, we'd like to finance the $25 billion for the New South Wales government deficit, which in a global scheme is not a lot of money, but when you add it up against all that other money that we're competing with for all those other budget deficits, it really asks some tough questions of us as how can we, again, be cleverer and better at accessing markets so that people invest in our bonds at hopefully the lowest possible interest rate.
And I suppose that's a multi-layered story because you're selling New South Wales, but part of that is selling Australia broadly. So
Yes.
it's a multi-layered message.
Exactly. On the debt side of things, definitely when we go offshore in particular, where there's a lot of interest in New South Wales paper. Why? We've got a good, strong credit rating and we offer an attractive yield, and our bonds are relatively liquid. So offshore investors really like that. But what they want to make sure is that when they're looking at New South Wales, they know it's part of Australia in general, and these other states like Queensland and Victoria and WA, that we all have a pretty coherent message to give, because there's only so much time that we've got to pitch New South Wales or Australia to global investors. It's a big, big world out there. It's a little bit like you can imagine a lighthouse that rotates, and for a second or two it's on you. And you've got to make the most of that opportunity. So presenting both New South Wales and Australia in the best possible light is really important.
How are funding conditions at the moment? How does it feel?
Yeah, funding conditions are pretty good. We've got a lot of the bond investors who are looking to invest in New South Wales paper. They love the Australian story. The challenge, of course, as I said, is making sure that as the Germans and the Brits and the Americans keep pumping out their issuance of paper, that our story remains strong. But I think it will be. I think it is a good message, and we've just got to speak more often to more people offshore about what our story is.
Obviously, a lot of our time this year has been absorbed with the creation of the One Fund, a near $50 billion fund. Is the One Fund performing as expected, given there's a bit of volatility in the markets at the moment? And what are we at TCorp doing to manage this and future bouts of volatility?
Yeah, so the One Fund, just a reminder, the One Fund is taking what were 15 disparate portfolios with their own investment objectives and investment strategies, and under the wishes of the Treasurer, Daniel Mookie, creating just a single fund. And we're well on the way of that journey to create a single fund. The beauty of a single fund is you only have one risk appetite, you only have one investment strategy. You get the benefits of superior risk management around concentration of underlying assets, around liquidity management. So it's an unequivocally good thing that effectively, for the same level of risk that we were running across all the other portfolios, the 15 separate ones, we're actually getting a better return. So it's really good news for the New South Wales budget, because it just means we're getting a better budget position.
It's a better way to manage the money.
Exactly. Yeah. So when you're investing, you have to always maintain a long-term view on your investment horizon. So the fund has been up and running now for about 6 months, and it's off to a very good start, and it's meeting all of its investment objectives. But I'll be the first person to say 6 months is not the basis for crowing about an investment track record. It's so much better to have a very positive track record than a negative one. But the success of the One Fund will be measured over a number of years. But if it's able to meet its objectives, as it is at the moment, that'll be worth, on a cumulative basis, many billions of dollars to the benefit of the people of New South Wales over what was there previously. So it's a good strategy, and it's been well executed, and we're very hopeful for the future.
Well, thank you, David. It's a big year just gone by and a big year ahead. Thank you for answering my questions. And to wrap things up, to our valued clients, please give us feedback on this discussion, maybe ideas for this forum, and we'll be in touch soon to let you know what's coming next. Thank you.